Hey, guy.
Off to a great start.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. As always, I got Isabel here, and we're gonna share and kind of talk about our birth experiences. So Isabel had a hospital birth, and I had 2 hospital births, and I had 1 home birth. And we both went natural, correct? Like you had, to me, natural means no medical intervention. I know there's like kind of like weird what people like think, like they say like vaginal is natural, but to me in my head I think like no medical intervention, that's natural. Do you like agree with that?
Yeah. I did get like the IV meds, like the pain meds, but that was only, at least is what they told me. They said that like once you get to like 6 or 7 centimeters, they can't give it anymore. It only lasts for like 2 hours. And then once you get to a certain point, you can't get it anymore.
It was like a teaser.
Yeah, it was like, it was just like, what, let's just take a
Take the
little
edge off.
But yeah, that's how they explain it. It's like to take the edge off. It doesn't make it completely go away, but it's supposed to take the edge off. With Emerson, it like made them go away enough where I could fall asleep. But then like, it felt like then 30 minutes later, I was waking up with contractions. It was probably longer, but it didn't feel that long. And then Tatum, it didn't really do a whole lot because I had back labor and like that shit hit different. So, but with Emerson, I just got 1 round of that because by the time it wore, maybe I got 2, I don't know. But by the time it wore off, like I was at 10 centimeters and like ready to, like there wasn't any point in, you know what I mean? I was too late to get it. But with Tatum, when I asked, she was like, you're due. I didn't get it until I was like probably 6 centimeters, and then it wore off, and she was like, you can get another round of it if you want. And I'm like, okay. With Tatum, I'm like, okay, well, like how much longer do you think I'll be in labor? And I'm like trying to explain to the nurse exactly what I'm feeling.
Need a time frame? What do you think here?
Yeah, I'm trying to explain to her like exactly what I'm feeling. And she's like, I'd say you probably have another 2 hours. And I remember telling her, like, I feel like it'll be in the next 15 minutes. And she's like, it's up to you. And like, I just waited and was like, oh my God, I really don't like, if this is 2 hours, I do want a little break because this back labor is like hitting way different. And so they gave me just half of it they just gave me half of it. And then literally 30 minutes later, I'm like, you better push that button because I got pushed. But they were like telling me because I'm like, well, what happens if I get it? And then she comes in the next 15 minutes. Like, how does that work? And I guess like it could cause issues with her. She basically come out like high. Well, she kind of did because she cried for a long ass time. I'm like, girl, I'm gonna need you.
She was withdrawing.
Yeah, I'm like, calm down. But she was a little high, but they
don't tell you about that.
Yeah, she good now. I'm like, is she all right? She's like, but yeah, but yeah, that's what I did. But
I mean, I think so. My experience is like, I was like, I don't want to go to a hospital because I know that I don't want to take any drugs. And if they offer it, I'm going to say yes.
I'm going to be like, yes.
I might even suggest it. Like, I remember one point.
So what you got in the medicine cabinet over there?
Yes, I was about to start like snorting Tums just to find like some kind of relief because like that shit hurted, Yeah. But I was like, I remember at one point, like I was like in the thick of it, like, so I had the urge to push like really early, and like they didn't like. She's like, if I was in the hospital, they probably been like, no, don't push. But I can't help it. Like I wasn't like deciding on the push. Yeah. It was just like, no, you need to push. So I ended up pushing for 4 hours because overachiever over here wanted to start pushing early. So it was really hard. But I remember at one point I'm just like laying like lifeless, on the floor. And I was thinking like, damn, if you could right now, I would let you cut him out from the back. I don't care. Just get him out. However you have to, just get him out.
When you said that you felt like you had to push, like did the urge change once he was like about to come out, or was it like the same? Because like I know for me, when I say like I need to push, like they're right there. Like, 2 pushes and she gonna come out. Like, that's when I feel the urge. But, like, did you have that, or was it just like a push that just felt good? Because I know with like Tatum, I would have a contraction and I was trying to fight that urge. I didn't really need to push. I was just trying to fight it a little bit, but I could tell any minute, like, it was going to be a point where I couldn't fight it. You know what I mean? So is that what it was? Or was it like, no?
I think it was, so when my water broke, my contractions went from 0 to 100. Like, my water broke and I like couldn't breathe anymore. Like, that's how bad it was. So I didn't have any time to like build up to it. So I think it was just like so painful that it was like a relief. Because as soon as my water broke, my husband was getting his hair cut. He gets home and he starts filling up the pool like immediately. And as soon as I get in there, I'm in there for, it really was like an hour, but it didn't feel like that. And then I was like, I have to like push, and it felt so good. I was like, oh, it was like, oh yeah. Like, it was just like one of those feelings, but still, that's a lot of energy, like to be like, to just be pushing like that. So
through it. Yeah. It's still a lot.
And I remember being like discouraged because you're pushing and nothing, like, stuff was happening, but it wasn't happening. And and at that point, like, I felt myself getting very discouraged because it was just so long of me pushing. And I was like so exhausted. I pushed for 4 hours out of my 6-hour labor. So that's a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a lot. Yeah. I feel like for me, like, I don't really know at the hospital. I know they have probably way more like pain management options. I didn't really know them all, but for me, I just knew that like an epidural wasn't an option. Like, I say that, but like going into my first, I'm like, okay, if I can't take it anymore, I'll get it, but it's definitely not going to be my first option. But I didn't really know what my other ones were until I went in there and said, I don't want an epidural. I would like to try to not get one. And then that's when they offered the pain stuff. But I'm pretty sure, like, if you go in, like when I went in for Tatum, which my water was leaking, like I wasn't really having consistent contractions or anything. And I remember the nurse was like, what are you doing for pain management? And she listed like a bunch of stuff off. Like, you can do like laughing gas. And I'm pretty sure she said like water, which there's a shower right in the room. So I'm thinking if I wanted to, I could have gotten the shower. So there's just so many options that I feel like a lot of people don't even know about. They just assume that if they can't handle it, like they got to get the epidural. Like, that's the only thing. You know what I mean? When there's there's so many other things that you could try before you jump to that, you know?
Yeah. Personally, me and Nick both took like a Bradley method birthing class beforehand. And I think that like I knew about, I wasn't even having a hospital birth. And I feel like I know more about hospital births than most women that have hospital births because I took this class. Like, I knew that you could have laughing gas. I knew there were options, and like you can ask for certain things and what you can and can't do. And I mean, like, let's be honest, at the end of the day, the hospital wants you to pick the most expensive option. Like, you are you're a check to them. So of course they're going to be like, are you ready for the epidural? Like, versus like maybe another option that maybe takes a little bit longer or, they
already assume that you're getting, like, when I went in, when I was having Emerson, they had to get the anesthesiologist to place my IV. And like when he walked out, he's like, I'll be back to place your epidural. I'm like,
oh, we ain't talking about this.
I was like,
jot that down.
I should have been like, how much you gonna pay me if I don't get one? Okay. All right. And then after I had her, I was like nursing her, and the nurse was like, it could be because of the epidural. And I'm like, did y'all not read the chart? Because I didn't get one, so don't disrespect me like that, okay? I didn't get an epidural. But they all just assume that you're going to get it and that you got it. I'm like, okay.
Dang. I feel like if I just did that, like, the way that you did it, like, okay, for example, my sister, like, I did not nap during my labor. It wasn't an option. I might have passed out. I went unconscious, but I didn't nap.
Right.
So when my sister, like, that, my stepmom was texting me and she's like, oh yeah, she's sleeping. I'm like, oh, she's sleeping.
She's
No,
sleeping.
wake her up. Wake her up. Like, what?
How you do that?
And then
That
she
way.
slept. She said she pushed for 45 minutes. I was like, I'm jealous. Like, I know everyone says, like, oh, you don't get a trophy. But I'm just like, am I doing it wrong?
Yeah, but I mean, maybe next time I will just roll up there and be like, listen, I'm trying
I'll
to take
start
it back.
now. Give me the drugs. I'll start them at home. We'll get.
Yeah.
I'm totally kidding, because I was happy. Like, I saw this animation of how an epidural is put in, and it literally scared me shitless.
That's
I feel
right.
like if it's like you have to like literally hit like a bullseye. Like,
Yeah.
they don't realize that how, like, I can, like, most women that tell you about their epidural, like if someone's like, oh, I had a perfect epidural labor, like my sister, she's like a success story. And I feel like those are rare. Like, usually you hear a lot about women that, like, they missed, or only half of their body was numb, or it didn't work completely. And I'm just like, so y'all still paying for it? You get half off.
Right. That's why I'm more scared to get the epidural than I am to just deal with the pain. And I also know people that have like still now, after having kids, they still have like weird feelings in their back and they think it's because of that. And it's a hard no for me. No.
I just feel like you're right. Like, if women knew that there were other options besides the epidural, maybe they would do that. I was in a laboring pool, and I was like sweating during my labor. So, and the water has to be hot, and it has to be very warm, because you can't just birth your baby in like a stream. Like, it can't be like cold. It has to be like warm. So they were making it hot, and the water got like barely up my thigh. And I was like, you gonna have to, can we make it colder? And my midwife, Kathy was like, no.
Like,
also, we need to turn the AC. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like sweating, and it's like miserable. Like, no, this can't happen. So I let him fill the pool as much as possible. And then, I started pushing, and we had to get out. So we got out the pool. I ended up not laboring in it, but I never got the effects, basically, is what I'm saying, because I feel like they said like water, or is Mother Nature's like pain reliever or something, something along the lines like that, and it never got high enough to like relieve the pain. You know what I mean? Like, it was like ankle deep, so I didn't have that experience.
Yeah,
so I really was just white knuckling the whole thing. I was like, I got sick, and I had this like hand towel that I like wiped my mouth with, and I never let go of that hand towel for the entire labor. Like, it was like the thing I squeezed.
You still have it.
If you look at all the pictures, it's just like this hand rag. Just that was the MVP. I'm gonna be honest. You know what I mean?
Now for home births, are there other like ways for pain management? Like, can they bring in stuff and give you like stuff through an IV, or is it like really just water?
I mean, water is like the one they really push. It depends on your midwife, because mine was really like, she had been doing home births since the 70s. So she was very more like natural, holistic. Like, you can do this. I've seen like thousands of women do it. Like, you just really got to practice breathing. Like, she gave me all these like old handouts of like practicing your breathing and stuff like that. And I did practice my breathing. I meditate, so it was like not an issue. But yeah, I've heard of women doing laughing gas at their house.
Oh, okay.
And they can do IVs. Some, my midwife can do an IV. I don't know if every midwife can, but they could probably do IVs. But she personally didn't have like stuff like that. Like, if you're doing it, like, we're just gonna we're not pulling out all the tricks.
Right. I also feel like too, you have to like know your body really well. And I remember after I had Emerson, I'm like, oh, maybe like I would try, like my labor went really well. Maybe I would try for a home birth. But then again, I know myself, and I feel like I'd feel more anxious and stressed out knowing that if something happened, like you know what I mean? Like, so for me, it gave me comfort just going into the hospital and being there. If anything was to happen, I knew that like I would be okay. So I feel like that's kind of what like made me not even entertain the whole, like, after that, I'm like, I think I'll just go to the hospital. My water was leaking, and I could have just probably sat at home, and I said, we should probably go to the hospital now just in case. Because with everything, my labor was only 10 hours. I was induced. And it was only 10 hours from start to finish. So I was really nervous that if I labored at home, that like I'd get to a point, because that's what with Emerson, I remember, like I was good breathing, and then all of a sudden that next contraction was like, oh shit, like I can't hold this, I gotta push. And then she was here. So I was nervous that, like, knowing that I handle pain well, that I'd be laboring at home thinking I'm good. And then next thing I know, I'm like, oh shit, I gotta push, and I'm gonna deliver my baby in my closet or something. And I just didn't want that. Wasn't ready for that.
I mean, at this point, you are ready for it. Like, I mean, I think so. Like, back to what you were saying earlier, like you were like afraid, like if something happened, and I think that's like the number one thing that people are afraid to have home birth, because they're like, what if?
Right.
But I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and like give you all statistics, because I really like I don't want to. So
Right.
if you like are questioning something, then like just look it up yourself. But statistically, yes, there are more like deaths that happen, like baby infant deaths, at a hospital than at home, because
Yeah.
I just feel like the people that go to the hospital, like, oh, they'll figure everything out. And I don't know, to me, hospitals don't have your best interest at heart. So anything could happen. Where
Right.
if you're laboring at home, like you did your research, you know what you're doing, you know what you're going into, like you're just more educated, and you're a little bit more knowledgeable about this process, because you have to like kind of take it into your own hands, if that makes sense. Like,
Right.
so and of course, like if I had something wrong, like my sister wanted to have a home birth, but she had preeclampsia, so she couldn't. So
Right.
throughout my whole entire pregnancy, I'm like, I would like to have a home birth. So I made sure that I took care of myself, and like I didn't want to have like a high risk pregnancy. And I know no one does, but like I
Right.
worked like extra
You
hard
made
from day
sure.
one
Yeah.
to make sure like let's nip it in the bud now. So
Right.
but to me, like natural, our birth is like a natural thing. I only go to the hospital if something's wrong. And to
Right.
me, birth is like nothing's wrong. It's a natural thing.
Gosh, yeah.
People, like you said, people literally give birth on the highway. Like
Yeah.
it happens all the time. And I think we don't really have a wide, like a broad understanding of it, especially like in America. Like a lot of countries don't have the luxuries that we have.
Yeah.
So it's like we really are the minority. So, and I don't want to be like people do it all the time, but like people do it all the time,
Yeah.
and not in a hospital. And I think I just really had a distaste in my mouth from hospitals and doctors. I just felt unsafe there.
Yeah.
And so I felt really more safe at home. Like my biggest fear having a home birth was having to be transferred to the hospital, because I knew once I hit the hospital, oh, all of a sudden my heart rate's
Right.
up. Oh, the baby's heart rate's dropping. Oh, we got to have an emergency C-section. Oh, you've been pushing for 4 hours. Oh, no. That's way too long. Like all this stuff is happening, and it really, they make it so urgent. They make it so an emergency. Oh, your baby is measuring big. Yeah. My 8-pound, 12-ounce baby was measuring a little bit big.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just feel like they really make things that are not serious, or not that serious, very serious.
Yeah.
And to me, that's more scary than having a birth at home. So my midwife, I did ask her about it. I was like halfway through my pregnancy, and I'm like, I have to ask you like the morbid questions. Like, have you ever, like, basically how many babies have you delivered that were like dead, or how many mothers have died? And her statistics from being a midwife since the 70s, no women have died. No moms have died on her like birthing, plan or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
And she was like, in the past decade, I've had only 2 babies die. And one of them we knew when she started. Right. It was like one of those things.
Well,
like
due to labor and being
like,
at home. It was
exactly. It had nothing to do. Like basically both incidents would have happened in the hospital. So one of them, like the placenta like detached off the wall, and like the baby died while she was in labor. That's the one they knew about. And then another one, I can't remember what she said, but it really did make me feel better, because I was like, that's like so small of a percentage. It was just like, well, I know. And also the statistics are skewed, because, how many hospital births happen versus home births. So, it's going to be higher. But I just feel like a lot of things happen that, just.
Yeah. But I also feel like too, like you have to do when it comes to going in, like I know childbirth, that's a natural thing. Like, yeah, we can all do it. But like also you have to do whatever is going to make you the most comfortable in such like an intense, stressful situation. You know what I mean? Like I did think about like, oh, if I have a third, maybe I'll try at a birthing center. Just maybe that's like the perfect in between of like, at least I'm not home, but I'm not at the hospital. But like, I also think like, I don't know, like I just feel like I'd be so stressed out and like just getting so anxious, and that would just ruin my time of like, because I handle labor really well when I'm at the hospital, you know, because I feel comfortable. So I think it's also like just knowing your body, know how you handle pain, knowing how you handle stress, knowing how you handle like intense situations, and whatever you got to do to just get through it, that's what you do, you know, like do. That's like some people that I like, if you don't have a high pain tolerance, don't sit here and be like, oh, I'm going to try not to get an epidural or whatever it is. Because for me, like, I feel like that's setting yourself up for failure. And then you're going to be disappointed because you said, oh, I didn't want to get an epidural, but I got one. Well, girls also can't handle pain. So you know what I mean? Like, set it up so you know that you're going to have the delivery, like your birth plan is going to go as planned, but make sure it's a realistic birth plan for you, you know?
Yeah. I think just to address like the question, personally I didn't take Lamaze classes, but I did take a Bradley method class, and I think they are totally worth it. And I think Lamaze is similar to that. Really any birthing class, because I was so knowledgeable. Like I was like ready to go. Like as ready as you can be for labor, because I like knew what to expect.
Right.
And I felt like comfortable. Like if I had, so having that birth class, it's like, okay, like if I was transferred to the hospital, I know exactly what I don't want. And my husband knows exactly what I don't want, and he knows how to advocate for it. Like, you know what I mean? Like if a situation happened, like would your, fiance Mark, would he be like, oh, like she doesn't want that, like we don't want that, or is it something like you all need to talk about? Like we took the class together, so we knew up front, like I didn't have to put, and a lot of people say like, oh, birth plans are stupid, like, oh, they don't follow it, go with the flow. And it's like, no, I'm like, whose flow are we going with? The doctor's flow? Because the hospital flow is just to make much money as possible. So I'm not going with their flow. We're going to go with my flow. So, I put some, like, I did have a birth plan on my refrigerator just in case I did have to be transferred. Like my doulas have it. My husband already knows what's on it, and it's on the fridge. So like if there's any misunderstanding, but like I think the real like positive thing here for me was that I didn't have to have a birth plan with my midwife, because we aligned perfectly. Like she was exactly what I needed, where I didn't have to be like, no, I don't want that. She knew. That's how she does it, so that's how I do it. Like, you know what I mean? Does that make sense? And that's like, I think like a lot of women don't have that, and I was really lucky. Like you have to, it's sad, you have to be like asking your doctor not to induce you. Do you know what I mean? Like why do I have to do that? So I think having like a couple things on your birth plan, like make it one sheet of paper with a few things on there that are really important, and the rest, like have that conversation with your partner so that they can make those decisions for you, because you shouldn't have to decide in this moment, Right. But I also think I wanted to add, like, as far as like pain tolerance, like first off, anybody, like, and I know women already know this, like they'll be like, oh, I can't do it. Like, you know that you can, but you also know that you have a way out. And it's kind of like running a mile. Like, it's like, okay, I know, like while you're running, you cannot have water until you're done the mile. Like, are you going to stop halfway through the mile and like not finish it because you're thirsty? Like, no, you're going to keep running, because the only way to get water is at the end of the mile. But if you have a water bottle on you, you're going to drink the water bottle throughout the whole time you're running because you're thirsty. And like, it's kind of, that's how I look at it. Like with pain management, like it wasn't an option. So I didn't even like be like, oh dang, like I really wish I wasn't feeling this right now.
Like for me too, like I kind of feel like, because my labors were so fast, like back to the Lamaze class. When I got pregnant the first time, it was during COVID. So like there weren't doing any classes. And I'm not going to lie to you, I waited till like a couple weeks before I was due, before I even got on YouTube and started watching like breathing techniques and like about the ring of fire and all that. But honestly, that, yeah, they helped a lot. And I feel like kind of going into it not knowing, like knowing just enough. Like I feel like I went into my labor knowing just enough to get me through. And with me, I know a lot of women feel like they're not in control at the hospital, but I didn't have that at all. I mean, yeah, I couldn't get up and walk because it was COVID, but whatever. Like I didn't mind sitting in the room, and it was like, right. It didn't bother me. But even when it was like time to push, like everybody was on my time. Like I didn't push unless I was having a contraction. And like my nurse, like I would tell them when one was coming, we'd push. She'd ask me if I wanted to keep pushing, and I said no. And like the midwife stood at the end just like waiting to catch the baby. Like I wanted to sit up, she sat me up. Like I was in the position that I wanted to be in. I pushed how I wanted to push when I wanted to push. So, and I would say even with Tatum, and Tatum's labor was way more intense than Emerson's. But even then, like I still felt like it was on my time. I laid there and did my thing, and I didn't feel like any pressure from the midwife or nurses to like get her out. But, and I know not everybody experienced that. So it's kind of like maybe I'm just like one of the lucky ones. And also, once again, for us, as far as like pain, our labors went kind of fast. Like, I mean, when I was with Emerson, it was only 10 hours. Tatum, I went in the hospital, but wasn't consistent. They induced me. And by the time they induced me and I had her, it was only 6 hours. So I feel like I don't really know what I would do if I was in labor for 20 some hours. I feel like maybe at that point would I get like just so exhausted where I'm like, I just want to go to sleep because I know I have to push this baby out still. So like, I don't know. It's like hard to say what I would do if I was in labor. Luckily, my labors aren't that long, but it's also hard to say like what I would do if they were long, if I did have to go longer. Then
it makes me wonder.
Put it in the bag.
I'm just saying, because like when people are like, oh, you know, I labored for 36 hours, like, are you talking about hard labor where your contractions, like you can't breathe? Because that like doesn't seem okay. So hear me out. And please, like, if you're on this stream and I'm wrong, like correct me. You did not have, like, there's a difference in like active labor,
right?
And like you did not have active labor for 36 hours, meaning like you the baby was literally like coming out,
Right.
Like, you don't understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like after the water broke, like sometimes even after your water breaks, you're not having intense contractions. Like basically the contractions where you couldn't breathe, like you couldn't talk.
Yeah.
To me, that's when you start active labor. And for me, my active labor started immediately after my water broke. And I just don't think people are having 36 hours or 72 hours of active labor, because I gave birth on Saturday at 6:35 p.m. You know, Friday night, I was hurting a little bit. Like I had contractions. My midwife was like, you're going to have the baby, because she came over. I had contractions on and off all night. I didn't really sleep that well. Like if we're counting like how long I was in labor, baby girl, that was 2 days.
Right. That's
you know
what I was
saying.
Because with Tatum, like I said, my water broke, and like that night, and it probably broke around from like 12 o'clock midnight. I didn't go to sleep. I was just having weird cramping. Like I knew something was happening. And then like at 5 o'clock, I just noticed some like dripping. And then I was at the hospital. Like we went there. They waited for like 3 hours to see if I was progressing, and I'd have like contractions, but nothing serious. They weren't consistent, but I don't count that. I count when they like started that Pitocin on me and those contractions hit right away. That's when I count my labor, because that's when it got real, and I like had to breathe and like really focus on my breathing to get through them, you know? So yeah, I don't count like when my water broke and I was just I could still walk around and do whatever. That doesn't,
it's like to take your breath away. Like, okay, like shit's really happening. Basically, you have you're down to like a couple hours. And I think that there's a big difference there. My sister got the Foley balloon when she when she got induced, and she had pretty bad contractions from that, and then they stopped, and she'd have to wait until the next day. So it's like, again, still I would consider that like that pre-labor, like the pre-labor pains, because I mean you are in labor, you are, so it's just kind of like, I don't know what the word is, you know, to describe that. But you know, I had back labor really, really, really bad when he dropped. I thought I was in labor. It was so bad, and it lasted pretty much like 6 or 7 hours. And then I woke up and he was like basically falling out of me, and I was like, that I see what happened here. But I mean, from then on, like, you know what I mean? Like, I would randomly just have a day where it just sucked. Like, you're just like having contractions. Like, I've heard women say they were in labor for a week, and I just, it doesn't make sense to me. And I was wondering the same thing. Like, is that from, like, you know what I mean? How bad were they? Were you walking around? How long was I in labor for then? Because to me, I say the active labor. And, you know, I just want to share my experience because, one, my midwife and my doula both said that my labor was fast for a first timer. Like 6 hours, like it didn't feel fast. I'm still like traumatized. But they said it was fast, and you know, I'm grateful for that because, you know, it could have not been fast. I did push for a long time, but that was like my own thing. But a couple things, like as far as having a home birth, like when you talked about before, being like afraid, like not afraid, but like just in case. That's like what a lot of women say, like just in case. And that is a fear that I think every woman has in general. Like even if you're in the hospital, like, oh shit, like this is like a life, essentially could be like a life-threatening thing. Like one of us could not make it. Like you're putting your life at risk when you get pregnant.
That was one thing.
That is just a scary truth.
I was scared to be induced, like, because I was scared, like, okay, they're going to induce me. They're trying to force my body to do something it's not ready to do. And then they're going to try to break my water, and my water can only be broken for so long before they got to go in and get her. So I was like really nervous that it was going to end in like a C-section. But I also think it's like how my body reacts to, like, I don't know, like I always just, because before I had Emerson, I did have a miscarriage, and I don't know why, but that miscarriage really like set me up for like success on my labor, because I really feel like it like gave me what to expect as far as like how my body was going to handle it. And I found out that like the baby stopped growing at like 7 weeks, and my body didn't miscarriage until 12 weeks. So I already knew that my body was going to hold on. You know what I mean? Like I just knew that's what she does. She holds on to shit. She don't know how to let it go. And I also knew that once Emerson, like, or once the baby came out, that it was going to be instantly like a relief, because that's how it felt when I had my miscarriage. As soon as it was done, it was like the cramping was gone. My sweating stopped. I didn't feel like I was going to throw up. Like it was good. And I'm like, okay. And that's like with them starting on Pitocin, it's kind of like my body's holding on to this baby and just not ready to let go. Even with Tatum, because I had to get Pitocin, it just holds on. But like once it's like, all right, you gotta let go, she's like, all right, you can have her, and like does it quickly and moves it along quickly. So when I say you have to know your body, like I mean things like that too. Like you have to know like how your body, how it is when it's having a baby. It's going to hold on. When it's ready to let go, it's going to do its thing, and it's going to be fast. And then when it's over, it's going to be like a relief. And like just knowing that it's not going to be that long. Even with my miscarriage, like my miscarriage happened very quickly and it was done and over with. So I kind of had a feeling like things are going to happen quickly and it's going to be done and over with. So then I wasn't that concerned about being induced, because I was confident that I knew my body well enough that it was going to do what it needed to do, and I was going to be okay.
You trusted yourself. And it's something I say all the time, like, give yourself some credit, trust yourself, trust your body, trust your baby. Your baby knows more about what's going on than you do. Like, it's just going to happen. Like, you could just lay in bed for the rest of your pregnancy and that baby's going to come out.
Yeah.
And my midwife would always say, because like when I was due on Halloween, so many people were having their babies. I was like getting jealous because people that were due after me were scheduling their inductions and having their baby. And it's hard to wait, but I was very like, this is what I want to do. But pregnancy is hard at the end. It's even harder to wait. But she was like, your baby like is going to be born. There's never like a baby that's like not born. Like
Yeah.
if you wait, they'll come. And it's true. And it's like, but it's so hard. Like I totally get why so many women get induced, because I mean, like it's just really hard. But I think also like, you know, for my home birth, there was like a lot of things that happened. It wasn't like a perfect home birth basically. Like I needed a lot of medical intervention like towards the end. So, and I've already shared like my birth story, but people that are listening, if they don't know, I had the postpartum hemorrhaging pretty bad after I had the baby, which obviously you don't know about. You're just like laying there like lifeless. And like I got, you know, the shot of Pitocin, and then I had to get 2 different rounds of suppositories just to get it to stop bleeding. My midwife was basically like, if you don't stop bleeding in 5 minutes, like you have to go to the hospital. And so at the time that wasn't registered, like I'm like still shaking, you know what I mean? Like I'm still just like kind of in relief from what I just went through.
Right.
And I think that's a big worry for a lot of people. Like, what if that's happening? I never even considered that to be something that I would experience. So, you know, Nick's like sitting on the bed, like, oh my God, like he's the one that's like worried because he's like in sound mind, like knows what's going on. And a lot of people said that as well, like, oh, but what, you know, my sister's cousin's friend like bled a lot. And it's like, my midwife knew how much blood she was comfortable with, basically. And that's kind of how they do it. Like, she's like, any woman I've ever transferred for postpartum hemorrhaging, like, she's of sound mind. Like, she's like, okay, yes, we're sending her to doctor. Like, I don't wait so long that she's like, you know, losing it. And I think that she handled it really well. And it is a concern now. It's like, okay, because obviously, like after having my home birth, I will continue to have home births. I just feel very confident in myself, confident in my body. I know what to do. And, you know, I just know that that's what I want. It worked out really well for us, but it is a worry now in the back of my mind. Like, what if this happens again? My midwife is like really old. So is she going to be around for me to have another baby? Because she was like literally perfect for us. So, you know, she handled that really well, but that's like the first medical intervention that I needed attention right away. Like I needed a trained professional to take care of me. Like, had I had a free birth, which is, if you don't know, it's where you just give birth without a midwife or doula or anything like that, you know, I would have had to go to a hospital. So that's why I'm like, I'm not so out there that I would have like a free birth, but I would definitely like, I need a midwife. And then I think like the next step would be like birthing center. But and I also tore a little bit. I didn't tear like bad, but I did have to get stitches. And that's like, okay, now I need medical attention again. So having that trained professional there was what I needed to make sure that like basically everything, you know, was wrapped up and taken care of. Again, had I had a free birth, they probably wouldn't have known about my needing stitches until weeks. I don't know if these women go to the doctor. I think it just depends on them if they go to a doctor at all, you know?
Yeah. That's what I'm like. I don't know. I thought about it recently, like, oh, maybe I should try. Because like I said, they went great. Like there were no issues. I didn't tear. So it's not like I needed stitches or anything like that. So it's kind of like, but then again, I'm like, I've done it twice and things went smooth. Don't mess it up. Just keep riding that train because you're going to try to get a little too brave. And then,
I mean, knowing you, like, one, you know how to advocate for yourself. Like, I don't think you'll ever be put in it. I mean, that's not true. There's always a small percentage of like you being put in that position. Like, you know how to advocate for yourself, like in a hospital, you know what you want, your body. My midwife, because I was like really traumatized after my birth. Like this took forever. I can't have another one. And my midwife and my doula, like, I promise you, like you went natural, like your first baby, like nothing, everything's brand new. Like basically like we're ripping through a mold right now. Like everything, like your body knows what to do. It'll be so much faster the next time around, especially if I, you know, do natural again. So, you know, she's like, I swear, like literally it's so much better. Like from here on out, they basically just fall out. So, you know, I feel like a lot confident. That's what she says. I had most people always say that, like, yeah, they just fall out after the first one. And I'm like, sign me up. Cause the 4 hour pushings for the birds. I'm like jealous of other women that are like, yeah, I did 2 pushes and he was here. Like, okay, are you rubbing it in there? You know how they always say there's no trophy for a home birth? Like, okay, there's no trophy for 2 pushes.
I mean,
that's just me being a hater, you know?
I won't say anything, but I get it. You know, we know.
So I think that, like, for you, like, okay, you are someone that is a good candidate because you're confident and you do know what you're doing. You've already had kids. Like, you know.
Yeah.
But I agree with what you said. Like, do not have a home birth if you are not 100% on board. Yeah. Because the hardest part about having a home birth is, like, navigating so many negative opinions, so many unsolicited advice. Like, what? Yeah. Like, people literally look at you like you're a crazy hippie. And it's like, you know, luckily I had the, you know, COVID, like, scare on my side, even though, like, I was never afraid of COVID. I just used it as, like, my excuse. You know, I work with customer service. So all these people are like, what? A home birth? And I'm just like, yeah, you know what? The hospitals are so scary, you know, with COVID. And they're like, oh my God, you're so right. Like, you got to know how to kind of, like, pander to them because like, yeah, I'm doing it because I don't like hospitals. I don't like doctors. Like, I feel so much more comfortable in my own home, surrounded by people that are not here to make money off of my experience. So
I will say, like, the doctor stuff too. I remember, so, like, with Emerson, they were like, oh, you can't go past 41 weeks. And I didn't know anything. I didn't read anything. And I'm like, okay, like, whatever. It made sense to me. Okay. And then after I had her and, like, I learned more and I'm like, oh, like, I feel like I could have went longer. Like, she would have come, like, you know, whatever.
They always are born.
And then when I had Tatum, they scare you because you had 2 babies so close together. And it's like, oh, your uterus, you had babies.
It's going to fall out.
You got to be careful. That the doctor was telling me, like, you can't go past, don't go past 40 weeks or 40. He wanted me to get induced at like 39 and some, but didn't want me to go past 40. And my pregnancy, there was nothing wrong. Like, I could understand if, like, during my pregnancy, there was some things happening, but, like, everything was perfect. Everything was fine. And then I got COVID and then I told them about it. And that was, like, another reason that they were like, oh, we don't know with that COVID. Like, who knows? I'm like, how? It's fine. Everything's fine. I did end up going into labor, you know, in time. And I honestly was ready to have her, so I didn't mind too much if they wanted to induce me because I was like, you gotta get her
You're
out.
Playing into it.
Oh, yeah. Really? Like, oh, yeah, we should probably
get gotta come right now.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah.
Do what you gotta do.
Yeah. I guess. But
I see you. I see what you're doing here. You see, you see it, but there's so many women, especially first time mom, they're like, oh my God, my placenta is gonna die if my pure placenta doesn't expire.
Yeah. Well, you know what's funny? Then after at my postpartum appointment, I saw one doctor, which I didn't see him my entire pregnancy. And when I was like talking to him about it, and like I told him what they were saying to me about, like, even after I had Emerson or Tatum, they were like, you need to make sure you get on birth control because, like, we don't want to have another baby close together, da 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 da. And I told him that they had told me that, and he's like, you're fine. And I told them how the doctor was saying, like, oh, you need to be induced. You can't go past 40 weeks. And he's like, they probably made you feel like you had some type of disease because you had 2 babies close together. And I was like, yeah. He's like, you're fine. Like, if you want to get pregnant again in 6 months, you're fine. You know what I mean? But the other doctors tell you, like, you need to wait like 18 months, 2 years before you have another baby. That's when. And he's like, no, like, that shouldn't stop you from growing your family. If you want your kids close together, like, get pregnant. I'd say wait 6 months just to make sure everything's healed, but, like, you're okay. Could you imagine if I roll in that hospital pregnant again and they're like, bitch, did you not learn the first time?
You can't be the only one. I think, like, educating women, like, hey, these are some risks. You are higher risk for things like preeclampsia and gestational diabetes. If you have a baby before, you know, my midwife told me 2 years, I've heard 18 months, whatever. But it's like, once it's done, it's done. So the bad mouth and, like, just
They literally had me going in every week for an ultrasound to like check her breathing and her heart, and she was fine. There was no need for they went like above and beyond. And
I just think that's so, it's my personal opinion. It's
but
so unnecessary. It stresses you out.
That's why they were doing it, for me to come in every week to get an ultrasound, like, and just so they like for like to take the extra precautions on their end. But really, it is for the money. They're just trying to get the money from the insurance because they're having me come in and calling it something that needs to be done when everything's fine. So I'm with you.
And you know, I think someone, Jonathan in the comments said, you know, it is a business. I agree. Like, there is so many things. Okay, so for like I said before, like, people, first off, the hospitals are like so full. Like, you made your money. Like, you have enough money where you don't have to like scare women. And I think that's my like argument is like, they just use fear. Like, there are so many women that are going to need C-sections, that, you know, do want the drugs. Like, I know so many women are like, no, like, I'm good. Like, my mom, when she had her last kid, you know, Chloe was an accident. You don't have a baby at like 35, you know, for fun, you know, as a single mom. And she's like, no, I just want the epidural because like I already had 5 kids, like, or I had 4. Yeah, like, I already did it. Like, I'm good. Like, just giving me the epidural, call it even. The baby damn near slid out. So that's fine. Like, you're not like telling her anything new, but it's just like, I have heard, honestly, most of the women that are like our age that had babies, more than 50% of them have a traumatic story. And it breaks my heart because it doesn't have to be that way. And, you know, I think it plays a big role on like the medical, you know, industry, but also a little bit like take a little bit responsibility. Like, pregnancy is happening, you know, you're pregnant, so you need to learn about it and not just like, okay, I need to take a prenatal vitamin.
Not just listening to like what they're saying.
You need to like stop relying on them to tell you what's going to be best for you, because it's not a one size fits all, and they don't know you. They
and also
look at your chart,
you in and out, like, you know what I mean?
That's why they do these
because they're just like, they got other patients. They're just trying to get you through. So if it takes a C-section to get your pregnancy out of the way so they can get other one, that's what they're going to do. Like, I have a friend who, she had a C-section, and because they were saying that her baby was big, and then she asked like, okay, well, can you induce me earlier? Like, if he's big, like, can you induce me then? And they like, no, it's too late, whatever. Just kept pushing it off. And then like after she had her baby, the nurse was like, oh yeah, you could have delivered this baby.
I would just, don't tell me now.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm like. That is just like, why?
Well, also, you know,
like, she's asking you to like, okay, if my baby's big and I'm 39 weeks, then why can't you induce me? What was the reason on why you couldn't induce her then? I don't, you know what I mean? Like, you could have, but I don't know. It's very,
I mean, her story is like so many other women out there. It's like, if you do advocate for yourself, like, hey, I really want this, and there's so many.
Then they try to make you feel guilty. Then they're gonna try to throw in all the risk, like, oh, well, then this would happen.
If you wait, you're risking it. If you wait, oh, the heart rates drop. You know, different things.
Yeah, they always got an excuse for something.
It's you know, I really do feel bad for you know, a lot of women that have already had that experience. And I know I've watched a lot of videos on it, and you know, me personally, pushing for 4 hours, like, they would not have allowed that in the hospital.
No.
Like, no, you're pushing way too long. Like, your baby is going to die if you don't get a C-section right now, which is like I told you, like, my biggest fear was being transferred and having to get a C-section. So it's like, oh, right then and there, like, I'm grateful that I was at home because I had the baby and it was fine. And I'm like a success story. Like, you can push for 4 hours. Yeah. You can do it. Like, I'm telling everyone, I'm telling all your secrets. Like, you know, I don't know. I just feel like there is a lot of responsibility on women. And I think moms, and I continue to advocate for, I say natural labor. And that's just because I know that you can do it. And I really do not care if someone uses drugs. Like, I feel like there's kind of like that stigma. Oh, like that whole comment, like, oh, you don't get a trophy for having it natural. And I'm like, but I kind of do, because I like feel good about myself.
Right. That's the one thing I will say too. Like, if you tell people, like, it's funny, like, oh, I didn't get an epidural, and they think you're like bragging. And I'm like, I am a little bit because I'm proud of myself, and I should be able to tell you my birth story of how I had a baby in 10 or 6 hours with no epidural. I'm proud of myself, and that doesn't make your story any less. Like, you delivered a baby too. You had a baby too. Either way, that is great.
I'm
But
jealous you got a nap and you only pushed for
exactly.
45 minutes.
I was about to be like, maybe we doing it wrong because they
You're
over there
flexing.
napping. Yeah. Like, okay, like, I'm a little jealous too. I want to be napping, scrolling my phone, do my thing, and just be like, okay, yeah, I'm
doing
ready
your
now.
makeup.
Right.
Listen, I tried to look cute for my labor. I put pink clips in. No, I put pink clips in. So now when I look back, it's the pink clips. And like this ratty bun. It's like, yeah, she put the effort there. You can tell. I wore like the nicer bra.
Yeah. Yeah. So, my hair was fun. I was looking a hot mess. I didn't even care. I was sweating.
But I'm jealous. Like, I'm not jealous, but it's like I can see how like that both are desirable. Like, I would love to have that, like that experience, but also mine. And so it's just, I think there's
have these cute pics, your hair's perfectly curled, not sweat, not even flustered a little bit, and you're just holding like
you just go baby's out. Because I would have done that.
Yeah.
I also think that the only thing, like, you know, kind of like sum this whole thing up. Well, two things to add on to like almost like the stigmas is like about like breastfeeding. And I know there's like a big like formula shortage right now. And I feel so bad for so many women because I don't know what the real reasoning behind it. And I keep talking to my husband. I'm like, what do you think's going on back there? But
yeah,
I think it's really, if anything, I think it's like bringing moms together in a way. Like, I know there's still people that are like, oh, not everyone can breastfeed. Okay, that's fine. But a lot of, like, I haven't met one breastfeeding mom that's like, no, my milk, nobody can have it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're more than willing. Like, I personally don't pump. I have like 4 bags in the freezer because you never know. But I would pump if I had like a friend that was like, oh my God, I can't. You know what I mean? Like, there's no breastfeeding mom out there that's like, I is refusing or not willing to help someone else out. And I think
if a
that's
mom
like a beautiful
messaged
thing.
me and said, hey, I can't find my formula, and I would gladly, like, I wouldn't even think twice. I mean, I have 80 ounces in my freezer that I'm trying to get rid of. That's coming up on 6 months. It's good for 12 months. So you got time if you need it. Like, if it comes down to it, you can still use it. And I'm willing to give that away because I don't need it. Like, I'd rather somebody else have it because I know I'm okay.
And it's free. It's free.
Yeah. And I could not imagine not knowing like how I'm going to feed my baby. Like, if you really, like, I just can't imagine that. And then also it's like, why wouldn't I offer that to somebody? Like, I would never want to be in that situation and have nobody reach their hand out and help me. Cause that's like scary.
Or be afraid to ask for it. And I think that's a little thing. Like, people almost like think that people that breastfeed or people that have natural labors, like we think we're better than them. And it's like, never. Like, that I'm cheap. I'm breastfeeding because I'm cheap, baby.
Right. And you know,
I would consider cloth diapering. That's because how cheap I am.
For Tatum, when I had Tatum, I was so over breastfeeding. I was like, damn, do I really want to do it again? And then I was like, I'm not trying to buy formula. I ain't trying to pay for it. That's the only reason I'm breastfeeding Tatum right now. Okay. Like, that's it.
It's serious. And like, personally, I'll like, you know, someone already tagged you in that one page to like human milk for babies. That's like a thing. They have that in like every city. So it's like someone said something about made it so difficult to donate it. I like this page because you can be like, I'm a smoker, but I got 100 ounces. Who wants it? It's free. And it's like, if you know, there's moms out there that will take that over the whatever quality formula is left on the shelves. And so even if you don't have to like go through like a donation bank, but I do know some moms, they don't have like friends or know people in the area, so they'll go to that. But it should be way more accessible, especially in hospitals. Like, I don't know, that's just my you know, personal opinion, but I do think, like, I feel like it will bring that divide that's kind of there, which is
Yeah.
unnecessary. It'll kind of bring it together, and I hope that it goes away, the formula shortage, because I mean, people are literally relying on this, like you said, to feed their baby. So or babies of multiples, like, you know, you have
Yeah.
two that at one point could have both been on formula, or
Yeah.
you know, I have a friend that has twins that's on formula. It's just, and then just the unsafe alternatives out there, like women are like being, you know, turning to like trying to make their own. And you know, I really want to be a lactation consultant, so I feel I'm pretty educated about this stuff, and making your own is just really not safe.
Yeah.
There's a lot more chemistry that goes into it than people think. So I just feel bad these moms are turning to these alternatives that are not
Right.
really ideal, and I hope that it works out. But like I said, I think that it's bringing moms together. I really would like to see, I really like to see more of it. But I think to take away from this whole like live stream, this whole conversation, is that it is, you know, our job as moms and pregnant women to like educate ourselves on the policies and procedures that go on in the hospital. Like, take an hour out of your pregnancy, or like you said, you're at the very end and you watched 2 YouTube videos and you felt so much more knowledgeable. Like, it's as
Yeah.
simple as that. You don't even have to take a class. Like, just take some time to educate yourself, and like just learn about what goes on in a hospital.
And
like,
ask
what are the options.
and ask the doctors like what the hospital policies are, as far as saying what are hospitals like, what are pain management options at the hospital, what are all of them, and like so you can actually see what it all is before you go in.
And I think that'll make your labor, like your husband too, like they need to be included. They need to know what you want, your partner, not just your husband. Like, what are we, like, what do we want out of this? Like, I knew there was like a couple key terms, like, I do not want this, absolutely not, or anything like this. I do want this, and this. And like you said, learning about like what the hospitals, like for example, the Tampa hospital near me, 50% C-section rates. 50%. Baby, don't transfer me there unless I'm literally dying.
Don't go to that
because
one.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm definitely afraid of having a C-section. I'm not going to that hospital. Like,
Yeah.
I did the research. I know that statistic. Another mom out there who maybe that's her closest hospital doesn't know that. So like, it's just our responsibility to kind of own up, because you really can't trust. We shouldn't be trusting them as much as we wish we could, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah.
So,
and I also like to add, at the end of the day, nobody gives a shit how you got your baby here. So stop, like, I know a lot of moms like are upset with how their labors went and all the thing, but it doesn't matter. Like, truly, nobody is coming up to you after you have your baby and saying, "Oh, how did you deliver?"
Yeah, 7 out of 10. Could have done better.
Yeah. Did you have an epidural? Did you take, like, nobody's asking that. You know, they're asking, "Oh, are you breastfeeding? Are they eating foods yet?" They're asking stupid questions. They're not asking.
Sleeping through the night? He's a day old.
Yeah, exactly. Has he tried corn yet? No. Like, what? Like, so nobody cares how you had your baby. So do whatever you got to do, whatever's best for you, whatever you feel comfortable with. Have your baby. And keep it cruising.
But go balls to the wall. Like, commit.
Yeah.
Commit to what you're doing.
Yeah. Make sure you know everything.
So, but do you have anything else you want to add?
No.
I don't either. Thanks everyone for joining, and comment below anything that you want to add to the conversation, because I love reading it, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.